modern lever action rifles. What do I mean by modern? Not new. New would be completely different. But modern. And how we define that, how I'm going to define that today. That's what we're going to talk about today, so stay tuned. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way with Almighty God at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, on that experience, more in regards to lever actions. Been hunting since I was a boy, got a lot of hunting experience. That's going to play heavily into today's episode. Been blessed to live all over this beautiful country and hunt all over. Anything from, squirrels to elk, whitetail on the East Coast, mule deer on the West Coast, bear, all manner of things. So that'll probably play in today. Let's get into the episode, shall we? Now, you can go get a brand new, right now, from Winchester, factory 1894 lever action. That's not what I would consider modern. I would consider modern a bit newer, as in 1899. Why? Because, actually, 1895. 1895, way more modern than the 1894. Why? Because a lot of those, what I would consider old, non-modern lever action rifles, use tubular magazines, and they used non-pointed bullets, non-Spitzer bullets, usually a straight wall or something like a 30-30. Well, by about 1895, 1899, right, we had metallic cartridges, we had smokeless powder, and we had bottleneck cartridges, and we had pointed bullets. So, 1899 modern. I'm not setting the bar super high. I think these are more practical lever actions for your average hunter. Now, I'm not saying you have to. If you want to hunt deer with a, lever action 357 Magnum, you absolutely can, and you should enjoy it if you like that. Realize you're kind of limiting yourself, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I like hunting with a recurve bow. I get it. But, argue with this if you want, but we went from the, 4570 to the 3040 Krag to the 30-06 for a reason. Unless you think we should still be arming our troops with 4570s, right? Or unless you think that was a mistake and we should have went into World War I with a 4570 or a 3040 Krag. I think you would agree that those are pretty big leap forwards. Now, a battlefield is not hunting. Totally get that. I've been on a battlefield. I've been in combat, right? I get it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it is a big leap forward going from something like a 4570 to a 30-06. Now, that may be irrelevant, right? If you're sitting on a deer feeder on a corn pile and a deer walks out at 50 yards, it's kind of irrelevant. But I think for all-around hunting, something like a modern 30-06 made in 1906 is a better all-around cartridge. Call me crazy. So that's the perspective that I'm working with here today. Now again, before you emote in the comments or, whatever, I love those old guns. They're great. I just think for an all-around hunting gun, if you want to hunt with the lever action, the more modern lever actions make sense. The one I'm going to start with is the 1895. I'm going to mention it briefly because it's kind of the first one that I know of. The 1895, I do believe Theodore Roosevelt had one of these. And the Russians used them in World War I, although not extensively. They used the lever action more than we did, I think, in World War I, because I don't think we used them at all. But the 1895, you can get it in 30-06, you can get it in 30-40 Krag, you can get it in, I don't think you can get one of these now, but if you could find one, they made them in 7.62 by 54R, the Russian Mosin Nagant caliber. But you got some, and they made it in the 405 Winchester, a beast, like African dangerous game hunting round. But 30-06 is a great all-around hunting caliber. You can get that 1895 in that. I'm going to briefly mention it. I don't know if you can mount optics on an 1895, and they're not super common. Winchester still makes them, or at least they did last time I checked. So if that's your cup of tea, you can certainly get one. The one I'm going to talk about was a mainstay. The main one that I'm going to talk about as far as starting this era, because the 1895 I don't think was ever super popular, but this one was for a big chunk of the 20th century. And I'm not an expert. There are guys that are just an aficionado of this gun. They love it. They think it's the epitome of firearms technology for hunting. I've never owned one of these. I'm not an expert on this gun, but I can speak to probably its capabilities just based on my knowledge of lever actions and my knowledge of the cartridges that it's chambered in. But that is the Savage Model 1899. And this was what I would consider a fully modern lever action rifle. A strong action. Modern, and Savage does not get enough love. They don't get enough credit for really the leaps forward in technology, right? They had the 300 Savage, which is pretty close to a 308, way before the 308 was the 308. A short action, modern, bottlenecked, pointed bullet cartridge. The 300 Savage. Fantastic all-around deer caliber then and now. It's not super common now, but it's certainly capable now. It's a fully modern cartridge in every sense of the word. Winchester was doing, making a 30-06 into a short action. Savage did it long before that. They also, the 250 3000 Savage, the first commercial cartridge to break the 3,000 feet per second barrier, I believe. That's why it's named that, with an 87 grain bullet. Way ahead of its time. Again, Savage does not get a lot of love for that, but the Savage Model 1899, available in 303 Savage, I would not call that a fully modern cartridge, but it would later come out in, again, the 300 Savage, the 250 3000 Savage, the 308, and many more. Many, many other cartridges. This was a mainstay. Came out in 1899. I'm going to look up when they stopped production because it's kind of astounding. 1899 to 1997. This wasn't even on my radar when I was growing up hunting in the 90s. I wish that it had been. It's a cool rifle. But, fully modern, fully modern cartridges, fully modern technology. And it was designed in, it says, when I checked Wikipedia to give credit where it's due, it was designed in 1892. Came in production 1899 until 1997. And a bunch of fully modern cartridges. Fantastic gun. It has a distinct look. It's kind of like the Browning Auto 5 in that you look at it and you're like, I can't tell if it's ugly or beautiful. It's kind of both at the same time. That's how I feel about this gun. It doesn't look like most lever actions. It doesn't have a tube. We talked about that. It's not tube fed, so you can have pointed bullets in it. There's different models, and they change models over the course of 100 years, as you might expect, as far as design goes. But a lot of them have a rotary magazine, like you might recognize in a 1022 or a Mannlicher, but which let you shoot fully modern cartridges. It had a cartridge counter on many of the models, which is pretty cool. It's also hammerless, which when you think of lever actions, you generally would think of a hammer. It's a hammerless gun. At least it has no external hammer. I'm not sure if it's hammer fired internally or striker fired internally, but a very cool, very modern gun. I don't know if the very earliest models were equipped for optics. They probably weren't in 1899, but the later models were equipped to use optics. Very cool gun. Very modern, fully modern lever action rifle. The next one I'm going to mention is the Winchester Model 88. This is a very, in my opinion, good-looking light, handy carbine. It does not look like a lever action. It kind of looks like an M1 carbine with a lever, if I'm trying to think of a way to put it. Very sleek, very svelte. In 308, I'm sure they made it in other calibers, but 308 is the one that I know of. It's modern design, equipped for an optic, full powered rifle cartridges, and I believe, I'm not the guy that knows all the big bucks or whatever, but I do believe it had or still has the distinction of holding the world record for the largest typical buck taken in North America, the Winchester Model 88. In 308, I think there's other cartridges it was made in. They're pretty rare. They're nowhere near as plentiful production or as long lasting as the Savage Model 99, but they are out there, and they're a fully modern lever action rifle. If you see one, I think these might be the best looking of the ones we're going to talk about today, just from a pure aesthetics, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I think they're a very good looking rifle. And the Winchester Model 88. I'm going to mention one briefly. Doesn't really fit into this category, but it doesn't really fit anywhere else either, because it's not really meant for pointed bullets. But it's also not like a tube-fed traditional lever action, and that is the short-lived Ruger Model 96. I do remember these from when I was a kid. But these came in 44 Magnum. They came in some rimfire cartridges, but they came in 44 Magnum, and they used a rotary magazine, and they look very much like the Winchester Model 88. But they're in 44 Magnum. Ruger traditionally has loved 44 Magnum. Kind of like their Deerfield carbine semi-auto, but this one was a lever action, the 9644. Very short-lived. I remember this one from when I was a kid. Very cool gun. It's not really fully modern because it's in a pistol caliber. You can get tons of lever actions in a pistol caliber. But it's also not a traditional tube-fed lever action. So I just thought I would kind of mention it here because I don't know where else I would mention it, other than Forgotten Ruger's episode or something. Moving on, probably the best one on the market today that I would pick if I were picking one, for me. I've thought about it plenty of times. They make a takedown model, which is pretty cool, and some of you guys will know what this is. And I should go back and mention the Savage Model 1899 also had a takedown model. But this one, the Browning BLR, Browning Lever Action Rifle, right, the BLR, a fantastic gun. They're fairly lightweight. I've never owned one. By all accounts, they're very accurate. They have a ratcheting tooth system on a bolt. Very modern design. You talk about fully modern cartridges and full powered. They make them in 308. They make them in 243. They make them in, I think, 270, 30-06. They make them in 300 Winchester Magnum. No, thank you. Or a 338 Win Mag. That is a strong action. The fact that I could get one of these in a 308 or a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 243 that's super lightweight that takes down for a backpack or for a long trip, that's awesome. And this is the only one I'm aware of that I'm going to talk about that's available in stainless steel. You guys that listen know I'm a big fan of stainless steel. I love stainless steel because I have guns to use as tools. I don't have them to primp and preen as a Barbie doll and play dress up with and post on Instagram. I have them to use. I have them to take in hard conditions. And I like stainless. I'm not saying I own guns that aren't stainless, but I really prefer it if I can get stainless. And this gun is available in stainless steel, the Browning BLR. Very cool design, fully modern, ability to mount optics, takedowns. They're not all takedowns, but they make a takedown model. They're phenomenal. I tend to prefer a bolt gun. I live out west, what I would call the northern Rocky ecosystem. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. I love it out here. I generally prefer a bolt action rifle. But if you said I couldn't hunt with a bolt action and I had to switch to something else, this would probably be it. All right, so that's a pretty big endorsement. If I had to pick a gun that was currently being made, if you told me I couldn't use a bolt action, I could use any gun, I'd probably go with the Remington 760. the same reason you go with the lever action, it's fast. Well, I think the pump action is faster, and I'm more used to a pump action. So I'd probably go if you let me use something that's not being made anymore, because Remington has gone down the toilet again, sadly. But I'd probably go with a Remington 760. But if you said I had to pick a new gun to hunt with, it couldn't be a bolt action, it had to be being made currently, this is probably what I would pick, a Browning BLR, out of all the guns out there to hunt with. It's a fantastic gun. Available in stainless, available in takedown, super cool gun, not overly heavy, which is a big deal to me, who I like to hike a lot. I like to spot and stalk and still hunt. I'm not a stand hunter. I'm not saying I never would do that again, but I really don't enjoy it. So for me, it's a fantastic gun. And the kind of copy that cat of this, at least it looks like that to me, very similar action, like ratcheting teeth, bolt design, would be the Henry. The Henry Long Ranger very much looks like this gun. I'm not aware they make a takedown model, but and I'm not aware they make a stainless model. But they do make a BLR, or not a BLR. They make a very similar gun in the brown and the I can't even keep them straight. The Henry Long Ranger. Just like many of their old school lever actions seem to be copies of the Marlin, which is not that old. The Marlin, I think 336 model came out in 1948, right? 1948 is not that old. But a lot of their lever guns seem to be very similar to, I'm not an engineer, but very similar to that. And, model 336. This gun seems to me very similar in design to a Browning BLR. And, if the patent's expired, it's all good, I guess. But these, by all accounts, are also very accurate guns. And, they're American-made, just like they're American-made gun, I believe, Henry. So the hat's off to them for that, to give some love to Henry. I did get one Henry lever action, and it was like broke right from the factory. So I was not super impressed. I fixed it and got rid of it. But they are made in America, so there's that. I don't want to disparage them too much, right? I'm glad they make guns in America. So if you're looking for one currently made modern lever action gun, I think they still make the Winchester 1895, although not super popular. And I think Winchester makes all their stuff overseas now, sadly, as far as firearms go, rifles go. But the Henry is made in America. Even the Browning, I believe, is probably made in Portugal, unless it's still made in Belgium. But I think they're made in Portugal now. But the Henry, American-made, still available. The Henry Long Ranger, I think I looked this morning, if I remember correctly, they're available in 223, which is pretty cool. 308, 6.5 Creedmoor. There may be some other calibers that I'm not thinking of, but by all accounts, a very accurate gun and fully modern. It's going to have optics mounting ability, fully modern designed lever action rifle. Did I forget one? Did I forget a modern lever action rifle that fires, a pointed, bottlenecked, smokeless powder cartridge with a pointed bullet, a full powered rifle cartridge like 308 or equivalent, right? Did I forget one? I tried to think of all the ones that I could. I may have. And the lever actions are not really my cup of tea. I've owned several over the years, and I don't own any now. So that says something. Although I've never owned one like this. I've always owned like the old school, PCC, like a lever action 45 Colt or lever action 44 Magnum, and I just never really saw the point in them for me, for the stuff that I like to do. That doesn't mean, again, that you should not have them and enjoy them and love hunting with them or having them as a truck gun or whatever you want to do with them. It just wasn't for me. And not always, but I generally prefer, for my kind of hunting, the Mauser-style controlled round feed bolt action. Not an actual Mauser, but like a Ruger guide gun or a Ruger, the M77 version, not the new Ruger American, but the Ruger gun sight scout rifle, controlled round feed, stainless steel, or even an old pre-64 Winchester Model 70. Those are fantastic guns, controlled round feed bolt action. That's my preferred. But I could really see the appeal of a full-powered rifle and a lever action for a little bit faster shooting, especially for what I like to do, spot and stalk hunting, still hunting, tracking. I love that kind of hunting. And I can see the appeal of a lever action for that. Now, that said, the 760 exists, and it's, in my opinion, faster, and it's also in full-powered rifle cartridges. But there would be nothing wrong with one of these. These are, again, fully modern, if you consider 1899 modern, right? So compared to a lot of lever actions that are being pushed on Instagram, they're pretty modern. So take that for what it's worth. I thought this would be a fun episode. Don't think that if you want to hunt with a lever action or have a lever action, you're limited to, a fat, straight-walled, obsolete cartridge. You can have a fully modern lever action gun. I hope this was helpful. Tactical tip of the day. This is on an older model lever action gun you may not be aware exists. But one of the hang-ups with a very good gun platform, the Winchester Model 1894, not a modern design, right? An old school 1892 or 1894. We're talking a tube fed. And no fault of Winchester or John Moses Browning, who I think designed this, it ejects out the top, which is not a problem using iron sights. However, when it comes to mounting an optic, it can be done, but it's kind of kludgy. Well, if you're looking for this classic look or classic lever action, but you want to mount like an LPVO on a low-powered variable optic or red dot or something, there was a model called the AE, the 92 or 94 AE. I don't know if they made a 90. I forget if they made both or one or the other, but they made an angle eject, the AE. You'll see it designated as AE often if you're looking for one like Gunbroker. But it ejects at an angle, and it came drilled and tapped for scope mounts. So if you are looking for one of those older Winchester designs, but you still want to mount an LPVO or something else, right, the angle eject exists, and it didn't stick around for very long. They still make a 94, but I don't think they still make an angle eject. And the old ones are not angle eject. It was kind of this in-between. So if you're looking for an older Winchester design, but you want to mount an optic and you don't want to drill holes into an older collectible, you might look for an angle eject. Some of the older ones were drilled and tapped, even like aftermarket, and they would mount a scope kind of on the side of it, like the Russians did with a lot of their guns. But you can get the angle eject and just mount a scope in the traditional American style on top of the receiver. So you might look for that. That's a tactical tip if that's what you're looking for. Your tactical verse of the day. This one really got me thinking when I read it this morning. And it's going to come from the book of Job. Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can a man be more pure than his maker? And I just was humbled by that this morning. A reminder of who we are in relationship to who God is. And just a good reminder for me to trust God and to put God in his rightful place above me, far, far above me. With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.